This is Studio 809.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Outdoors Hiking Bob podcast. I'm your host, Hiking Bob Falcone. You can find me on my website at hikingbob.com, where there's links to my social media, my newspaper columns, all the other podcasts, my photography, all that stuff. You know where to find it, hikingbob.com. Today, we're bringing back one of my favorite and most frequent guest on the show. She offers some great advice, good tips, and always a fun conversation. It's Alicia Filley, who is also known as the Healthy Hiker. And Alicia is a physical therapist and an avid hiker, so these things really come together really well when we talk about how to keep yourself not only injury-free, but injury recovery-wise while out there hiking. And Alicia, thanks for being on the podcast.
Thanks for having me back, Bob. I'm so excited to talk with you again and to share some information with your listeners.
Great. It's always good to have you on. The information you have is always just spot on. And finding somebody who, like you, is a physical therapist and also a hiker, that your topic relevance is just perfect for this podcast and for the listeners out there. So we're always excited to have you on, and I always look forward to what topic you bring to us when you come onto the show. And so tell us, what are we going to talk about today? What is your hiking and physical wellness topic for today?
Yeah, so today I wanted to talk about some hiking health myths, some things that maybe people think or perspectives that they might have about how to train or stay healthy for hiking that maybe are not quite accurate. So I wanted to just clear up some misconceptions that might be going on out there.
And boy, are there a lot of those out there.
Yes, I know. We get a lot of differing things and, interesting questions. And it's great when people ask and they share the things that they've heard or that they believe to be true. And that way we can just sort of clear things up and make sure everybody has the best information so that they can go forward and stay healthy so that they can hike for as long as they want to be able to do that. And that's my whole goal with my Healthy Hiker program and with my training for my clients, is to help them to stay healthy and strong so that they can hike on into their 70s and 80s even. So it's kind of just where my focus always is, and I'm excited to talk about it today.
And we should mention for the listener that you also you offer a lot of online consultancy. That you have a program for people with their knees, healthy knees. That if there's anything that hikers deal with, it's definitely knee issues. I'm number one on that list for knee issues.
Yeah.
So you do offer a lot of services, which we'll talk about that later, how people can contact you. But I want to make sure people understand it. You offer a lot of services besides doing the great information you bring us here. You do offer services for people who can contact you, and you can help them get better or prevent injury, which is, obviously, getting better is significant. Preventing injury is even better. So what would be the first myth that people have?
Well, one of the things that you often hear is that I don't have to train for a thru hike, especially. I'll just get my trail legs on the trail. And I was recently featured in an article in Backpacker magazine online. And they were basically asking the question, although this wasn't the title of the article, what the author was really trying to get at was, what is the minimal amount of training I need to do for a thru hike? Do I really have to do all of this training? Like, what can I just get away with? And many people start out through hikes with that thought in mind, like, I'll just get my trail legs as I go. I'll start out with lower mileage and I'll just get my trail legs as I go. But most of the people that start out that way don't complete the trail. The statistics are pretty significant of the number of people that start a thru hike and don't finish. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just thinking, and I didn't mean to interrupt, I was just thinking that there was a post on Facebook about 2 years ago where somebody said, I'm a day hiker and I want to go backpacking. What should I do to prepare? And somebody wrote on there, there's no difference between backpacking and hiking, just go. And I'm like, boy, that's just really terrible information. It's like, The difference is backpacking's typically longer. You're carrying more weight because now instead of a day pack, you're carrying a big pack. So I was just trying to think of all the ways this was different. I ran out of space. So that kind of goes along with what you're saying. Through hiking is nothing like a day hike, or even if you do a 10-mile day hike, it's still not the same thing. So
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
it's
please. I just thought of that encounter I had with somebody online. So please tell us
yeah, it's not the
what's
same
going on there.
thing. It really isn't. And it doesn't make any sense logically to spend all this time and money researching the trail, packing supply boxes, buying the equipment, and ignoring the one thing that's absolutely you're going to depend on to get you to complete the hike, which is your body, right? So, what are the minimums? So, this is really what they wanted to know. What are the minimums? And for me, the absolute non negotiable minimum is time on your feet. This is absolutely critical. You have to have time on your feet because when you're doing a through hike or even a week long backpacking trip, let's just say, you're going to be walking most of the day. Most of those, distances are going to be 6-8 hours worth of hiking. And most of us can go out and do that in a day hike fine, but we can't do it day after day after day, right? Because we're not used to standing that much. Most of us have more sedentary jobs. Unless you are a teacher or a retail worker or even a wait staff person, you're just not standing all day long. And those muscles in your feet, the stability muscles in your back, all of that get very fatigued when you're not used to using them in that way. So time on your feet is absolutely critical. How can you do this? Well, you can work at a standing desk, get a walking pad to try to, spend more time walking during your day. It doesn't have to be fast, but it's really just spending the time on the feet. I always tell my clients that one way that you can experience this is Thanksgiving dinner. So, if you've ever cooked Thanksgiving dinner, you're exhausted by the end of the day, or any big, meal. And why is that? Well, your kitchen is not that big. I mean, even the biggest of kitchens are not that big. You're not walking miles and miles and miles, but you're standing. You're standing all day and you're just not used to it. So, time on your feet, absolutely critical. The next thing is time on the trail to test the equipment. You've got to make sure that you've got the right shoes, that your pack fits well, that you know how to set up and take down your tent. You know how to get in and out of your tent easily. And do you have enough strength to even hoist a bear bag? That's not a small task. And some people, if you've never practiced that, if you've never tried it, if you've never realized, do I have the coordination? Do I have the strength to hoist that thing up into the trees? Although I know most people carry, the barrels, the canisters now. Still, you need to think through all of the things you have to do on the trail and make sure that you can do those things and you can do them easily. Because if you can do them sort of, it's going to be really frustrating when it's raining. It's going to be really frustrating when it's cold and you're tired at the end of the day. You need to be able to do these things almost second nature. Which you will as you go along, but it's just going to make the start of your trek that much more enjoyable when you're not struggling so much.
I'm thinking about two things. One of which is not only time on your feet. You're right. I mean, if you do a day hike, even if you do a 6-mile day hike, and you average, we talk about the average being 3 miles an hour, but in reality, you don't really hit that on a day hike, depending on the terrain. I'm right in Phoenix right now. On some of the desert trails here that are pretty flat, I can get close to 3 miles an hour, but you're doing maybe between 2.5 and 3 miles an hour. Not only is it the time on the trail to get used to longer hikes. If you're doing a 6-mile hike, you may be on the trail for 3 hours. And you're not carrying a big heavy pack. But I'm also thinking about footwear, and you and I talked before we started recording about differences in footwear, that there's a reason why when you look at a really good retailer that sells outdoor equipment, they have backpacking boots, and then they have hiking boots. Backpack boots tend to be a lot heavier, more durable. There's a reason why there's a backpacking boot to support your feet. as opposed to just your regular day hiker, which can tend to be a lot lighter weight. And a lot of it's because of how much time you're going to spend on there. And then the one other thing I was thinking was the movie and the book Wild, about the woman who did the Pacific Crest Trail. One of the funniest scenes in that at the beginning is Reese Witherspoon, who plays the character, with this big backpack that she has got packed with everything imaginable on the face of the earth. She can't get it on her back.
Right.
And this isn't a thing because it's a woman. It's because how many people do you see with these packs just overloaded and haven't thought about, how am I going to lift this thing up to put it on my back? And then you have to carry that on your poor feet and knees that are going to take a beating. So you're right about learning how to be on your feet that long and with a bigger load on your back. I'm sorry, but I was just thinking of those things as you were talking about that, going, I know what that's about.
Yeah, absolutely. I always tell my clients that you need to practice how you're going to perform. So if you, it doesn't do any good to practice with a day pack if you're going to be carrying a backpack, because you want to know, is that backpack fitted to you? You might find out things at 7 miles that are different from 5 miles. So 5 miles, everything's going great. 7 miles, you're chafing. That strap is not hitting you the right way. Why is that? Is it come loose? Is it just not fitted properly? Is it the wrong pack for you? Like, the shoes might be great for 3 miles. At 5 miles, you start getting a blister. Why? Are your socks too wet? Is the shoe not broken in well enough? Did you increase your mileage too fast? Like, you have to practice how you're going to perform. So use the same clothes, use the same shoes, use the same socks, use the same pack, all of it. However you think you're going to be on the trail is how you need to be in your training.
In my time in the fire service, where I spent my career, we call it practicing as you play. So when we would go out and do training exercises, whether we were training dragging a full hose line through a building to put out a fire, we practiced, and we didn't go out there in our station uniforms and drag the hose line. We put on all that big heavy gear, the big heavy, firefighting clothing and the air pack and the mask and the helmet and the gloves, because when we came to fighting that fire, which might happen next day or next week, that was the gear we were going to be using to drag that hose. We're not going to be going into a burning building with our station uniform on. So we would be practicing as we were going to play. We call it playing, but obviously, you're exactly right. I carry the same backpack when I'm doing my day hikes, whether I'm going to 10-mile one or 3-mile one, because that is the pack I'm going to wear when I do the long one. And it's packed with the same stuff. Seasonally, what's in there changes, obviously, from summer to winter, but I wear the same pack all the time. Even if it's, yesterday I did a 2.5-mile hike with Cole, and I wore the same pack I would if I was doing a 10-mile. Like I did 3 days ago. Before that, I did an almost 9-mile hike, the same pack, so that I'm comfortable with that pack no matter what I'm doing. And people look at me like, what are you doing in the city park wearing that big pack? That's not a big pack, but it's a pack.
I do the same thing. My day pack weighs about 15 pounds because typically I'm leading a hike, right? And so I've got extra supplies. I'm carrying extra water, so I have extra stuff, and people look at me like, it's just 3 miles. What are you doing? And I'm the same way. I carry the exact same pack filled with the exact same stuff, the exact same amount of water, because I want to be used to doing that. I don't want it to be new.
As much as I buy new boots at the drop of a hat, I do not buy new packs very often, because that pack is now perfectly form fitted to me, and it goes on. I cinch it up, and it's perfect. I know how it's going to feel, and if I have something packed in there wrong, I can feel it instantly that thing is sticking me in the back. I need to take the pack off and readjust and stuff like that. So I'm glad to hear you say about that. I think a lot of people don't do that, and like you said, they think that their day pack that they wear for the 3-mile hike is going to be suitable for a 10-mile hike, and that is just not the case unless you know it's the case, unless you've done the 10-mile hike.
Right. Yeah, the other thing is that hikers are notorious for what's the phenomenon I call, what's around that corner? So you think you're going out for a 3-mile hike, but you're like, I'm feeling good. It's a beautiful day. What's around that corner? I wonder where that trail goes. And suddenly your 3-mile hike has turned into 7 miles. And if you don't have, you don't have the things that you don't have enough water because you were just thinking you were going out for 3 miles. I'm just going out for 3 miles. I probably don't even need water. Many, many times I have seen this happen with experienced hikers. Experienced hikers are the worst. Because we just think we are always so well trained, and then it's just the lure of what's around that bend that can get you into trouble. So yes, I have the same rule, Bob. I always have the same stuff. I always have the same emergency. I always have the extra water. All the things.
And then the other part of that, of course, is get there-itis, that if you know you have a destination 7 miles and something is going wrong, weather is changing, you're going slower than anticipated, somebody in your party is going slower than anticipated, and you have to get there instead of sitting there going, maybe this is a good time, but we should just turn around and go back and maybe try this again another day. And people don't. They push themselves, or they push somebody else too far and get themselves in trouble. And that could be, going back to your thing about having the right gear, that your get there-itis, when the gear isn't fitting you right, is going to make your life a whole lot more miserable later on. Instead of, we're right now, when we're recording this, about a week before it's going to go live, we're experiencing this record temperatures in the Arizona desert right now. It's summertime temperatures, and people are being rescued off of mountains because they have to go do that hike today. The mountain is not going anywhere. Do it another time.
That's right.
Sorry.
Oh gosh, that's so true. That is so true. So looking at training, training your body is essential. When you're young, your body is more forgiving. So if you're a new grad and this is your summer adventure, then you'll probably be able to get away with less training. You see many college students or even high school grads who are just like, I'm going to just do this through hike, or I'm going to, go on this month-long backpacking trip. And they do just fine. Well, that's because they're young and their bodies are more resilient. Chances are they've been more athletic because they're younger. Maybe they've been playing sports in school, and they can adapt and recover more quickly. However, if you are newly retired and this is a bucket list adventure for you to do the Colorado Trail or to do PCT or the AT or even John Muir, you're going to need a lot more preparation. So that's really all I have to say about that.
Okay. So the first myth is you can't just go out and do it. You have to
train.
You have to train up for it. What is the second one? To the next one.
Second one is one near and dear to your heart. It's the the myth I call hiking poles are for sissies. Yes, I know we've talked about this in the past, but it bears repeating. So yes, we're still talking about this because I still hear from people who ask me, do hiking poles really help? Are they really necessary? Should I use them? And here are the facts. That's that most people experience knee pain when they're hiking downhill. When you're hiking downhill, the forces your knee experiences are about 4 times greater than when you're hiking on a level surface. And that is really almost comparable to when you're running on a level surface. So when you consider that hiking is an endurance activity, this means your body's going to probably experience these forces for a longer amount of time than normal. And your muscles are going to get tired and the joints are going to start to, talk to you. And so hiking poles help dissipate these forces. Like, we know this from rehab literature, just the pure physics of it. When we are trying to offload an injured joint, we use canes and crutches and walkers. So we have known this, but recently in the last probably 10, 15 years, there have been some actual studies with hiking poles, and they find that the same thing happens, that those poles help to dissipate the joint reaction forces that are happening at the joint, specifically at the knee. So yeah, they're essential in helping to manage if you've already experienced knee pain. They're also a good preventative, because if you want to be an avid hiker and do something like you do, Bob, 800 miles a year, that's a lot of time where you're experiencing those forces through your knee. So, the things that you can do to minimize that are important. And one of those things is using hiking poles. Um, Poles are also great because they actually increase your ability to breathe because they cue you to stand more upright. And so they allow you a greater lung capacity, which improves your aerobic capacity and your endurance. Um, and that's just another added benefit. So, studies have also shown that the benefits of hiking poles continue when you're carrying a loaded pack, helping you to stand more upright, helping you to manage that load, and also helping you to manage the forces that are going through your knees. So hiking poles are not for just for sissies. Hiking poles are for everyone. If you're not using them, you should probably at least have them with you so that you have the access to them. Like I don't always use them, I'll be honest, because some trails just or some sections of trail don't warrant it. But I always have them so that I can access them if I need to.
I'm on the same page as you. I don't always use my hiking poles, especially when I have my dog with me, because it's hard to have a leash on one hand and a hiking pole on another and getting those things. But I find that when they're especially good is on rough terrain, even if it's not so much as taking the load off, just the stability you get by having that third and fourth point of contact, that not only is it probably going to be better on your knees and everything anyway, but just the stability that it might prevent you from falling and, twisting an ankle, blowing out a knee, cracking your noggin on something, which definitely don't want that to happen. Just the stability you get from having that if nothing else, especially here in the mountains where we're dealing with up and down steep slopes, especially when you're going down, having that, if you're taking a big step down, having that hiking pole you can get ahead of you it probes for what could be that rock might look stable, but you put a weight on it and it's going to wobble on you, that it could stabilize you going down that next big step. Obviously, hiking poles are definitely not for sissies. And the only people who think they're not for sissies, or they're for sissies, are people who haven't had knee pain or haven't fallen yet. I think they'll change their tune once those things happen, when they start experiencing the knee pain or something.
Yeah, I think they definitely do help with stability and balance. And I think if you are somebody who maybe has always been very athletic and agile, then these things are not maybe as important to you. Maybe you can adjust and accommodate, but they're always good to have for safety. And like I said, even just prevention, even just using one pole will help dissipate some of those forces and just allow you to go a little easier on your knees. It also allows you to not have to work as hard. So the eccentric contractions in your muscles, the kind of contraction that makes you so sore in your quads and in your calves after you've done a nice, big, long, challenging hike, that you can decrease that effort in those muscles by using hiking poles as well. So it can help with muscle soreness and stiffness afterwards. So they're beneficial. Everybody should try it. Everybody should have a pair. Whether you use them every single hike, is up to you, but you definitely should have access to them.
I found a way to make myself bring my hiking poles too, is I converted one of them into a tool. And without getting into much, and I recorded a video about this the other day on YouTube. I took a hiking pole, and I actually did with two of them, and put a hook on the end. And the reason for that is I like taking pictures in moving water. And oftentimes in a creek or something, there's going to be a branch that's in the way or a log, and it gets in the way of the picture. And getting those out of the creek, and sometimes you can't wade in there or you can't reach it. I made it so that there's this hook on the end of the handle end of the hiking pole that I can extend, and I can hook out and pull out whatever's in the way of my otherwise wonderful picture, just dead log, a dead branch or something like that, or some trash that's out there. So now I have this hiking pole that's also a tool that makes my photography better. I need to get a hold of that company and say, you owe me a royalty if you start selling more of these hiking poles. Going back to your point though, having that as a secondary tool is another reason why I carry it with me. So now I'm doing two things at once.
Yeah, for sure. Especially if you want to cross that creek, or something, that's definitely helpful.
Don't want to fall in with a bag full of gear.
No, you do not.
It's a bad thing. What's your next myth that we need to address?
So one of the things that I've seen people start to think and use in their training is this thought that weighted vests are a good substitute for load training if you want to train with a backpack. So instead of using a backpack, they're using a weighted vest. And that is not a good substitute. Weighted vests don't carry the same way as a backpack does. Weighted vests rest completely on your shoulders and your chest. A backpack is designed to not weight on your shoulders. It's designed to transfer all the weight to your pelvis and rely on your skeleton to hold up that weight. And weighted vests are not designed that way. So it's not a good substitute. Weighted vests can make it feel harder to breathe because you bear some of that weight on your chest, but also your shoulders, because as your shoulders fatigue, you are decreasing the amount of lung expansion capacity that you have because the lungs go on up into your upper chest. So as that weight starts to pull down on you, you start to decrease your lung capacity. And they're probably not as beneficial as most people think they are, especially for things like bone health. Weighted vests are great for increasing caloric expenditure, so they can help with weight loss and they can help with overall fitness because you are going to have to work a little harder when you have them, but they're just not a good substitute for backpack training. Backpack training is very specific, and like you, I have been with my backpack in a gym, on a treadmill, in a city park, walking through the neighborhood, because again, we want that specificity of training because that backpack is designed in a very specific way, and it's hard to mimic that unless you actually have a backpack. And you want to make sure that backpack is fitting well. You want to make sure you can reach your water bottle. You want to make sure that your straps hold, and you don't, some backpacks tend to come, the straps come loose, and it's important to know that, like every 3 or 4 miles, you need to tighten up your waist strap or tighten up your shoulder straps or check your leaning lever strap. So not a good substitute. Weight vests are not a good substitute for backpack training. They may be easier, they may be more portable, smaller, but not a good substitute.
The one thing that I'm reminded of, and I'm going to go back one more time to my time in the fire service and how that translates into what I'm doing as a hiker, is if your pack is fitting you right and you have it on right, you shouldn't even really feel it on your shoulders. Am I correct? It should be resting on your hips.
Yep.
It should be nicely cinched on your shoulders. So if you're feeling that on your shoulders, you're wearing it wrong, or it's the wrong pack for you. So I could see where the vest, you mentioned, wearing it, as part of an aerobic training program is probably beneficial to that. But if you want that to simulate a backpack, I haven't heard anybody doing this, because right off the top, it seems absurd to me. It's not a substitute for a backpack. The weight's in different places. All your weight on your backpack is on your back, not on your chest.
That's right.
I can see all the kinds of ways. And if you're wearing a backpack with a hydration pack in it, as you're drinking water, that's definitely a time for you to retighten things up, because as you get rid of that water, you're losing weight, plus volume, physical volume in that pack. It's going to need to be. So I see people wearing backpacks, and you can tell they're wearing it wrong because they're way down on their back, and they're not tight. So as they're moving around, that pack is just flopping around like. That is every time you take a step, that is throwing your spine out of alignment, your hips out of alignment, which translates to your knees being out of alignment, which translates to you're going to feel like garbage by the time you're done this little hike.
Yeah. So if you're training for a backpacking trip, the backpack should not feel like a weighted vest in that it should not be hanging on your shoulders. It also should not feel like a 7th grader getting off the bus, hitting you in the butt, hanging way down your back, hitting you in the derriere as you come down the bus. I mean, we've all seen them. Those kids want to just carry those backpacks so low and loose. But it should be snugly secure to your back. You should be able to run your fingers under the shoulder straps without any problem. And it should fit snugly onto your pelvis, and hips, and that's where you carry the weight. And so you're right. If you have a well-fitted backpack, you can carry easily, as opposed to a weighted vest, which really feels oppressive to me. I've tried them. I tried them out just to see, because I had a lot of clients asking me about them. Can I just wear a weighted vest? And I said, well, this is what I think is happening. Let me try it for myself. And sure enough, it's just not the same. Not the same.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting that that's even a thing. I didn't even know that was a thing. I could see it for something. I could see it for runners who aren't necessarily wearing a big pack and they want the aerobic ability and they, having the extra weight. But for hikers and backpackers, I really don't see that as being a great idea. It seems like a really bad idea, actually.
Yeah, I have clients who want the extra weight. They want to work with load. We look at training with variables of speed, elevation, load, and distance. Those are really the four main variables you're looking at when you're training. So they want to train with some load, but perhaps they don't want to wear a backpack all the time. In that case, a lot of times they'll wear a weighted belt. And that more mimics where you're going to carry the weight for a backpack, and it's much more maneuverable, and it allows them to maintain their lung capacity. So 5-pound or 10-pound weighted belt can be another alternative if you just don't feel like strapping on the backpack.
There you go. Okay. What's our next myth to bust here?
All right. Well, number 4 is hikers don't need plyometric training. So plyometric training is high intensity, explosive movements. It's usually used to train for power. And it's just not something that you see oftentimes in endurance training programs. And the reality is that hikers don't really need to be doing things like box jumps and burpees all the time. But for my clients who are ready, I do have them to start incorporating bouncing and hopping and stair climbing into their training. And there's a couple reasons for this. Number 1, it's good for tendon health. So again, you don't have to be doing box jumps. You don't have to be climbing bleachers. You don't have to be doing this high intensity, but getting that stimulation to your joints and to your tendons is really important. Good for bone health as well, because bones grow from stress or impact. So anytime you give that little bounce, that little impact to your bones, or you pull on the tendon, it stimulates the bone to start making more bone. So for those who are worried about bone health, it's a really good thing to do. Like weight-bearing exercise, walking is great, but also getting a little bit of that impact is really good. And you can do that through stair climbing. You can do it through bouncing. You can do it through hopping. Easy, soft landing jumping jacks. So a lot of times people with knee pain, they don't want to do any jumping. But once you get strong and you're really supporting your joints really well, then you can start to incorporate some hopping and jumping. And it's very applicable to hiking. So even on relatively easy hikes, you're going to encounter a place where you need to hop off a rock, or you need to jump over a mud puddle, or hop over a log or something like that. So as we age, we don't jump and hop like we used to as kids, and it can feel a little scary. So that's the other thing. I really want my clients to be used to that feeling, so that they don't start to get nervous if they have to hop across some rocks in a creek. Now, if you got waterproof shoes on, it's not a deep creek, and you want to just slog through it, that's fine. But most of us will probably try to hop from rock to rock, and you want to feel good and secure in that movement. Because the more you hesitate and don't trust yourself, the more likely you are to actually have a fall. So getting in a little hopping, a little bouncing, a little jumping, stair climbing is a good thing for hiking training.
And I imagine it probably also increases your overall stability, because I'll go back to talking about being on rough, rocky trails. I mean, it's not quite the same thing as jumping or anything like that, but you may have to, this rock is going to twist from under you, and you may need to adjust yourself to counteract that or something like that. I imagine it's kind of like the same thing as what you're talking about. I've never heard of that, but
it starts to play into agility. So once
Okay.
you start being able to tolerate some hopping, bouncing, a little jumping, then you are able to start working on your agility. And that's what you see all the kids doing, for football or for soccer, all of the agility drills where you're doing grapevines or fast feet or, any of that. And that plays into, again, being on the trail. Just like you say, you're crossing a boulder field, you step on a big boulder that you think is stable, and that big old thing starts to lean, and you have to hop over to another one. Then you've got that agility built in, and you're used to that feeling.
Great. I had never heard of plyometric training, but now that you've described it, I know exactly what it is. I guess I haven't heard of that term before, which means I probably need to start reading a little bit more often about stuff. But yeah, I'm thinking about all the ways that's helpful. I mean, sometimes you're out on the trail and you have to rock hop. Maybe crossing that creek, wading through it is just not not doable. And if you've ever tried doing that on some creeks, it's not like all these creeks are nice flat bottoms. They're typically, especially in the mountain, there's a lot of rocks under there that cause you don't know where you're stepping and how slippery is that rock that's been worn away by water and eroded, and it's nice and smooth and almost slippery. And being able to stabilize yourself by maybe just rock hopping across it instead of trying to wade through it, it makes a difference. So that's pretty good. Pretty good advice. That's great. I need to. I'm thinking about, like, when I go to my local park here, when I'm walking the dog, that just, there's park benches all around. It's just maybe as I walk by a park bench, hop onto it and then hop off and hop on it and keep going to the next one. Maybe just an easy way to strengthen these old sore joints,
well, that's
muscles.
I wouldn't start quite with the park bench because that's a pretty high jump, but maybe the curb.
Okay.
Hop onto the curb and then hop off the curb.
Perfect.
That would be if everybody would do that, because what do kids do? They do exactly that, right? So if everybody, every time you came to a curb, just tried a little hop on or a little hop off, that would really be helpful.
I'm constantly reminding myself that at my age, I don't bounce anymore. So the more I can do to not land on the ground is probably a smart thing to do.
Indeed.
I mostly just go thud, and then it hurts for 2 days. So
oh no.
It would help. It would hurt. It would behoove me to learn how to do these things so I don't end up on my tail when I'm out there.
Well, if you are training with your backpack in the way that you're going to use it, and if you are using your hiking poles, and if you have practiced a little hopping and agility, as well as just some overall basic strength training for the trail, you should be able to stay upright, Bob. That's the whole goal. So busting these myths will help you.
To be fair, and people who hike with me have seen this, I rarely ever, it is rare for me to fall on a trail for as many miles as I do every year. It is rare for me. I can't walk through my house without tripping over something, but somehow or another, the sixth sense kicks in when I'm on a trail. And I mean, I've fallen. Everybody has at some point. They've tripped over something and fallen, and that happens. But even when I catch my foot on something, I somehow develop this, I don't know, cat-like reflex where I manage to keep myself upright and not land on anything. Obviously, like, it's not 100%, but I think people will be surprised at how far less I ended up falling on my face, my side, or my back than people would think would happen with as many miles I hike. And somehow, I don't know how I do it, but
you're experienced. It's like an athlete who's been doing something for a while. You know what you're looking for, and your body's well trained.
At least my muscle has memory. I don't know about anything else, but
Bob, are there any myths that you hear people say that maybe you want to clear the air on?
No, you've really hit some really good ones there that I'm trying to think. I mean, there's a lot of myths that are not necessarily, a lot of hiking myths are not necessarily related to your field, physical therapy, that I would, I hear myths about rattlesnakes all the time because I encounter them so often here in the desert. Not as much in Colorado, but here in Phoenix, if I get through the next couple of weeks without seeing a rattlesnake, I'd actually be shocked. And there's some myths about that. There's actually a rattlesnake company here that actually goes to people's homes when they call in, say, I have a rattlesnake, that goes and gets these rattlesnakes. I'm going to have them on the podcast and talk about that.
Oh,
But
that'd be cool.
as far as physical, let's talk about one real quick thing. You mentioned at the beginning was hydration. All kinds of opinions on hydration. I find that I don't believe I need as much water as other people might. I mean, and I think I'm pretty good about monitoring myself. My throat starts to feel dry, that I need to drink water. When I go on a hike, my dog drinks far more water than I do. I need to bring extra water mostly for him than for me, because he'll tell me when it's time for water. He'll stop and look at me, and it's time to give him some water than I do. But and I usually tell new people into hiking, how they want to know how much water they need, and people can throw out all these different numbers, X amount, and I'm not saying that those numbers aren't valid numbers that you see when how much water you should carry per person for how many miles you're going to hike. I think those are valid calculations, but I also think everybody varies. I usually tell people, carry as much water as you can carry, as you can physically carry, and the best way to get rid of that water weight on your back is to drink it and get it off your back. But what can you tell us about hydration? Is there a good rule of thumb? Is there something in your experience that you found that is a good way for people to keep properly hydrated? What's a good hydration rule of thumb?
Well, I think it's important to distinguish between dehydration and perhaps underhydration, because dehydration is a real medical issue. So if you are dehydrated, that means that you are having real medical symptoms, and that needs to be addressed emergently. But most of us experience this less than optimal level of hydration before we get to dehydrated, right? So we throw around this word dehydrated a lot, and I just want to make sure that we understand that really is that's an emergent condition. Underhydrated can make you feel pretty yucky, but you're not in medical danger, right? So being underhydrated or perhaps less than optimally hydrated can just zap your energy. You just don't feel great. And it can affect your hiking. It might slow you down a little bit. So there are rules, there are formulas, so many liters per so many hours for so many people. And you can start there. But again, training is key, getting to know your body. I'm carrying 3 liters of water. I don't care if I'm going 3 miles or if I'm going 10 miles. I'm carrying at least 3 liters of water because I know I'm a heavy drinker. And I consume a lot of water even in just normal everyday life. That's just what my body's used to. So I'll be able to survive, but that's where I feel really comfortable. You also have to think about, is it hydration? Is it under fueling? So some people feel crummy and feel thirsty, and really they're hungry. And so they need to actually eat something, and they're going to feel a lot better. Their hydration status is actually fine. Some people get dry mouth, and so for those kind of hikers, I recommend like carrying some mints with you, something that you can suck on so that you don't, if you're a mouth breather and you feel a dry mouth and it makes you feel like you're thirsty, maybe you're not actually thirsty. Maybe you just have dry mouth. So that's something to consider. Always, of course, considering the weather and how that's going to play into how much hydration you need, how quickly you're losing fluid, how much you're sweating. Again, it starts to overlap with heat. I'm in the South, so when you are in a high humidity area and you're sweating a lot, you're losing a lot, but you're not able to evaporate that sweat, so you're not actually cooling. So are you experiencing symptoms of overheating or underhydration? Which one is it? Could be both. They overlap. So kind of just getting to know your body and what you need. I have a lot of success working with my clients using an electrolyte formulation that has some calories in it as well. so that we're kind of hitting all the bases at once. We're getting the fluid, we're getting the electrolytes, and we're getting some calories. So they're staying titrated. So we don't have these big swings in up and down blood sugar, electrolytes falling, hydration status falling. So I encourage them to sip on this formulation as they go, either if they don't have, here's the other thing is that children and older adults don't have the same thirst mechanism as regular adults do. So when you're very young and when you're very old, you tend to lose or not. So in children, it's not well developed yet. In older adults, you tend to lose that thirst mechanism. That's why, and I know you know this as a firefighter, so many times when you get an elderly person and you have an ambulance call for an elderly person, you take them to the hospital, and what's the first thing they do? They give them some IV fluids, and all of a sudden they're back to life, like they've just, so it's very easy for older folks to get dehydrated too. So it's some fine tuning, it's knowing your own body, it's really doing that specificity of training so that you understand what works best for you. And even if that means, I have some clients who, based on mileage or based on time, then they will drink if that is what they need to do to keep themselves, if they don't have that regular urge to do it, and then all of a sudden 5 miles in, they feel terrible. Well, it's because they haven't been drinking. They needed more calories. They needed some electrolytes. So, you develop a system, and that's how one of the ways that I work with my clients is to really help them fine tune what's going to work best for them. So it's very individualized. So I don't know that I really answered your question because it's not something that you can generalize really.
No, you definitely did answer the question because, like I would tell people, carry as much water as you can carry. And I usually follow that up with, you'll eventually figure out how much water you need as you get more experience. But no one should ever go on a hike without some quantity of water with them. And you and I talked about, we carry the same pack. It always has the same gear in it. It's always, you're going out on a hike with the anticipation that things are going to go completely smoothly, and you'll get this 3-mile hike done in around an hour or so, figuring on the average time it takes to do a hike. But you also have to anticipate that anything can happen that's going to make that into a 2-hour, 3-hour, 4-hour deal. You get lost, you get injured, you stop to help somebody else who's injured, or something else could happen that's going to make this into all of a sudden a longer hike than you can. I want to remind the listeners too that for a really great podcast on nutrition, to go back to episode 465 on my podcast with Marissa Michael, when she talked about her book on nutrition for outdoor recreation. Really great. The book is great, and the conversation I had with her is great, and follows right along with what Alicia's telling us here about hydration and fueling. Her book goes into a lot of detail about that stuff. I know, Alicia, that's not exactly your sphere there, but obviously you've been doing this long enough, you know how all this affects people and everything. But go back and check out that podcast I did with Marissa Michael about nutrition, and it falls right in the line with a lot of, and getting back to your thing about physical therapy and injuries and stuff like that, if you are properly fueled and hydrated, your decision-making capability is better than when you start to starve yourself, which starves your brain, which causes people to make bad decisions, or at the very least slow down reaction time when they see a tripping hazard coming or something like that. So all these things kind of mesh with each other. Training
definitely.
properly, equipping properly, fueling ourselves properly, all of these things just work so well together to make it an enjoyable experience. I couldn't do 800 miles a year if I didn't do all these things properly.
Well, it's funny. Hikers will white knuckle it. Like, hikers with knee pain are still going to hike, even though they have knee pain. They're just like, I'm just gonna as my son says, I'm just going to thug it out.
Yep.
And it's not necessary. Like, it doesn't have to be a struggle. It's always going to be hard and challenging based on the kind of trail that you choose, but it doesn't have to be a struggle. And here's some ways that you can make it less of a struggle and more enjoyable. Have a good time while you're out there, right? You're out there because you're supposed to want to enjoy it. So take care of yourself and all of these ways so that you can enjoy it more and struggle less. That's kind of my whole perspective.
Is it fair to say that there's a difference between ending a hike a little achy as opposed to being in pain? You know, at my age, I have knees that have had issues, and I'll come off a trail feeling a little achy, but I would say that that's not the same as being in pain. Am I on the right track? Is there a difference there? Is that okay to feel a little achy after a longer hike and maybe on some rough terrain?
Yeah, absolutely. And especially after you've sat in the car and then you go to get back out of the car once you get back home. It's completely normal to be a little stiff, to be a little achy. If you're feeling pain, chances are you may have something either more acute or a chronic injury going on, like real pain. What you want to watch for is recovery. Does the pain abate? Is it gone the next morning? In which case, you're probably fine. Maybe your body is telling you that you took on too much of a distance too soon, like you made too big of a jump in one of your training variables, be it distance or elevation or the load that you were carrying or the speed at which you were going. Like you just made too big of a jump and your body's like, hey, that's not cool, but I can handle it, but let's back up a little bit. So pain doesn't always mean that something is terribly wrong. What you want to watch is how long does the pain last? Does you recover easily? Does it happen again? And then consider one of those 4 variables and see if there's something there that you can do to modify it so that you're not in actual pain. But achiness, stiffness, that's pretty normal. Get home, get in a tub with some Epsom salt, make sure you're well hydrated, get a good night's rest, do all of those things for recovery.
For me, it's when I get back in the Jeep, I take 2 a leave as soon as I get back in the Jeep. And because sometimes a hike I did the other day, it was 2 hours of driving each way. So when I got back after hiking more than 8 miles, almost 9 miles, and got home, not everything that was creaking when I opened the door to the Jeep was the doors of the Jeep. Some of it was me creaking a little bit. And I guess any new pain or new aches would be something to pay attention to. If it's like, well, my knees are a little sore because they happen, and I got old knees, and they're a little sore when I get done, but they're not painful. But if you're doing something and you have especially a new pain, but a new ache, something to pay attention to?
Sure, absolutely. You want to make sure that you are not catastrophizing over it. Like, oh my goodness, something has gone terribly wrong. Yeah. Because we know that because pain is a biopsychosocial phenomenon, meaning, yes, there can be something biologically that happened. There might be some sort of pathology there. There might be a muscle strain or a ligament strain. But there's also the psychology of it. Are you extra tired? Are you worried about it? Are you worried about something else? Are you stressed? All of those things can turn up the volume on your pain. And then the social aspect of it as well. Like, do you have a good support system? Do you have the ability to eat well? Those kinds of factors of socioeconomic factors, determinants of health are important as well. All of those things act like a volume switch on your pain. It can either turn it up or turn it down. So, you want to just make sure that's there. I'm going to notice it. I'm going to do all of my things that I do for recovery. I'm going to get a good meal. I'm going to get good rest. And then I'm going to see how it feels, as opposed to like, oh my goodness, I've done something terribly wrong. This is the end of my hiking career forever. That's going to make it seem like a much bigger problem than it is.
Having a hiking companion to tell you to quit being a sissy. I have a few of those. Alicia, as always, this has been a great conversation, really great advice. Tell people, A, how they can find you, and B, what services you offer to people who may want to follow up with you and get more advice or ideas or training tips. How can people find you, and what do you offer for people who want to contact you?
Absolutely. You can find me at www.thehealthyhiker.com, and there you can find my blog, which has just tons of information about hiking and hiking training. You can also see some information about my programs. I offer 2 programs. My flagship program is my Healthy Knee Protocol, and I use a very specific method to get you to be able to hike with less pain and help your knees to stay healthy. And then I also have a group program called Hiker Fit. And that is a program for people who want to stay fit for hiking and are looking for some structure, some accountability, a community. It is a very fun program geared towards progressive strengthening that is not going to kill you, right? So a lot of times, this is not a 30-day boot camp where you're going to feel worse, after you start than when you did before. This is just a very well thought out progressive program for people who want to stay fit for hiking, where we're going to address balance, stability, core strength, lower extremity strength, upper body strength and stability. And we're also looking at it from a health standpoint for the long term. It's a program that's going to help you hike for many, many years to come. And also find that you're able to do things in real life that are also very helpful and are going to help you to stay healthy as you age. Like these are the things that I hear from my clients in Hiker Fit that are a surprise to them. They can get up and down off the floor more easily to play with their grandkids. They can stand in their closet and put their pants on one leg at a time and not have to sit down to do it. They have more balance when they are carrying in their groceries or doing their gardening, things like that. So Hiker Fit is a great program that anyone can join. And I would love to chat with anyone about it. If you want to reach out to me on my website, thehealthyhiker.com.
Well, Alicia, again, always so wonderful to talk to you and to see you and to have a chat about hiking. And like I said, the perfect melding of your professional career as a physical therapist and your avocation as a hiker, the way they meld and help people just enjoy being outdoors even more. And I've never had a chat with you where I haven't learned something or been reminded of something that I've forgotten or ignored or something like that. So again, always a great, I ignored a lot of stuff, but I shouldn't.
Well, it's always great to chat with you.
And I forget even more.
You're an inspiration to us all, Bob. So
I'm
keep on
hoping
keeping on.
Something. My goal is to keep moving, so we'll see what happens. Again, thank you so much for being on the podcast again. One of the things I'm working on my website, and I need to do this with you, is I'm putting a page together of podcasts that are grouped by either person or topic, and I need to do that with you because you've been on so many times that people want to find you instead of having to search through almost 500 episodes to be able to just come on there and say, here are all the podcasts with Alicia. I need to do that and get that on my website. So that might be a project I'm working on while it's 110 degrees out here and I don't feel like going outside.
Yeah, awesome.
For the next couple of days. So we'll get that done. Alicia, thanks again. Really appreciate having you on here.
So welcome. Thank you for having me. Enjoyed talking with you like always.
Always fun. And everyone, thank you for listening to the Outdoors Hiking Bob podcast. We'll talk to you later.